But what if you're not sure? So you know that there's some information that you need to cite and some information that you don't need to cite. But what if you're not sure if it's common knowledge or not? What if you think it could be common knowledge, but I don't know? It's always better to cite. If you're not sure if it's something that could potentially be something that's not common knowledge, just cite. Nobody's going to get angry with you. Nobody's going to mark it wrong on your paper that you did something wrong if in fact it was common knowledge and you cited it when you didn't have to. However, the reverse is not true. If you think something's common knowledge, or maybe you don't want to go through the time of citing something because it's annoying, you're saying, oh, I'm sure this is common knowledge, when maybe it's just something that's known within your field, or maybe just known between you and your roommate. You say, oh, it's totally common knowledge, and then you don't cite. That is something that gets you into trouble. So if you're ever unsure, always cite. And there's 3 different ways that you can cite. And we'll talk more about this in the coming modules, but I just want to bring this up to introduce you to these topics. The first is summary. A summary has different wording between the original source and the information that you include in your paper, so the words are different. The summary also is shorter in length than the original text that you're citing. And lastly, it requires a citation. You'll notice that this is a common characteristic among all 3 methods of citation, is that they require citations. It's the reason that you're including them. A paraphrase is different wording again, but it's different from the summary in that it's in similar length to the original source that you're using. So you're not trying to condense maybe a larger text into a smaller text. For example, if you wanted to summarize a book that you read to a friend, you would just pick a couple main points. But if you wanted to paraphrase something, you're likely paraphrasing maybe a paragraph and you just want to put it in your own words. This is when you would do a paraphrase, when you would write a paraphrase of something. And a quotation is the last option, which many of you are likely already familiar with. This is the exact same wording that the original source used. It is exactly the same length as the original source. This one requires quotation marks around it because it's a quote. It's something that you're taking as this is exactly what they said. And of course, again, it requires a citation. So I want to show you an example of an instance in which you may be looking for some information you want to include in your paper. You go to a website and you find information that you want to use. How do you make sure that you're not plagiarizing? What sorts of steps do you need to take to make sure that the information that you're borrowing is then cited properly and represented properly in your paper? So I'm on this website, Universe Today. I want to know more about the Earth's diameter, how big it is, what sorts of physical specifications are available, what do we know about the Earth's size, that sort of thing. So I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to look at this first paragraph. So since the Earth is not a perfect sphere, there are 3 numbers to know when answering questions about the diameter of the Earth. The rotation of the planet has slightly flattened it out, so it has a larger diameter at the equator than at the poles. The equatorial diameter of Earth is 12,756 kilometers, its polar diameter is 12,713 kilometers, and its average diameter, which is referred to in common usage, is 12,742 kilometers. For our friends who are not using the metric system, that translates to 7,926 miles. So, lots of numbers, lots of specifications. This looks good. I want to use this whole thing. Well, maybe it can make it, we'll make it that. We'll just use this bit. This is the bit with all the numbers. That looks good. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it into my document. So I have my example from the universetoday.com. I have the original paragraph in which it was used on the website, and underneath I have the plagiarized material. So just say for now that I thought, oh, okay, I just want to use part of this. So I'm just going to pop it into my paragraph, and I'm just going to let it go as it is. I'm just going to include it. I'm sure it's common knowledge, no biggie. So this is a problem, right? So I've obviously highlighted the problematic area in red. That's the part that I took from the paragraph from Universe Today, as you can see above, and I've just included it in my work, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm just not going to cite it. This is a problem, obviously. We all know that this is a problem. There's a couple of different ways that I could fix this, however. See, I really want to use this information. There are 3 ways that I can fix this. The first is I can provide a summary of the text. So my new paragraph as a summary reads as such. It is common knowledge that the Earth is round, not flat as scientists hundreds of years ago claimed. According to universetoday.com, the Earth's diameter is roughly 12,742 kilometers. So I've said according to universetoday.com, indicating that it is not from me, that it is from somewhere else. Because it's a website, I don't really have a page number that I can include. But still, I've indicated to my reader that this information is not my own. I've got this information from someone else. I'm not making this up. I found a source that says this, and I'm going to include it as my expert source. The second way I can fix it is with a paraphrase. So using different wording, but a similar length, like we discussed earlier. I'm going to say the diameter at the Earth's equator is 12,756 kilometers. Its polar diameter measuring about X and X amount, and the average diameter, which is the measurement usually referred to as ... So as you can see, I've included some of the same information from the original paragraph, but I've changed the words. I've used synonyms. I've used similar words, but maybe different sentence structures, different phrasing structures. This is how I create a paraphrase, is by using different structures and using different words. I can maintain the same meaning of the content, but I can write it in such a way that's unique to my paper. And finally, the other means that I have is a quotation. I can simply put it in quotes, in which case at the end of the quote, I want to include in a parenthetical citation, the original source, where my reader can go, maybe to my references page, to find out specifically what source I used. If this were a book or an academic article with page numbers, I could include a page number after this as well. I could also indicate here that this was the first paragraph of the website. That would be fine. But ultimately, a quotation is you're including quotation marks. This is explicitly what the source said. You're not including any additional information, and that this is another way of citing. So as a summary, what is plagiarism? Plagiarism, we discussed, is taking someone else's work and claiming it as your own, putting it in your paper without attributing the original source. Any information that you take from any other source needs to be cited, unless it's common knowledge, unless it's knowledge that the general population, if you ask them, would likely know off the top of their heads. Why should you care? Obviously, we've discussed that there are many ramifications for plagiarism. You can get into a lot of trouble. You can get kicked out of the university. You can fail a course. You can fail a paper. You can also ruin your reputation and lose your credibility with your reader. And like we said, those things are very difficult to get back and to repair. How can you protect yourself? Understanding that at some points you may need to cite and at other points you don't. Being very clear about that distinction will help you keep yourself safe. And if you're ever unsure, make sure that you cite your information. Make sure that you, somewhere in the paper, somewhere in the sentence, include either a direct citation or an attribution to the original source so that your reader ultimately knows where you got your information. Okay? Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.